Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pac-12 Chalk Talk, your source for everything Pac-12. I'm Mike Sackley, and in studio tonight, from left to right, we have Ben Haber, Pierce Bly, and Robbie Baker. All right, the Arizona State Sun Devils traveled to UCLA last weekend to take on the Bruins in hopes of clinching the Pac-12 South title. The race for the title continues, however, as ASU fell to UCLA 29-28 in the Rose Bowl after a missed field goal attempt in the final 4 seconds of the game. Now, guys, can ASU recover from this loss, and what changes need to be made within the team to move on and finish out the season? Ben.
I think they will recover from the loss, but there's a couple keys that they need to change to improve upon for the rest of the season. Coaching-wise, struggling, kicking-wise. But what I'm going to focus on is the defensive running game. They're not stopping the run. Currently ranked 7th in the Pac-12, giving up about 150 yards per game. And they're going to, as you see right here, Kevin Prince running to the outside. They're going to need to stop that and make good tackles to improve upon the rest of the season.
Yeah, I like Ben's point the best, is the coaching. Discipline is ASU's biggest problem, has been for years. Dennis Erickson, in the past 4 seasons of his tenure, they've been in the top 3 or led the Pac-12 in terms of penalty yards per game. Noel Mazzoni, Craig Bray, the rest of the Arizona State coaches have really got to discipline this team the rest of the year and make sure that they don't fall in the rest of their 3 games.
And I actually disagree with you guys. I don't think they're going to be able to recover. They have a very hard time winning close games. You see the missed field goal here. They're not a very resilient team. When this team loses, they continue to lose, and the reason for that is because they can't win close games. The 3-point loss against Illinois, the 1-point loss against UCLA, they collapsed late against Oregon. This team, they struggle defensively when it matters, and they can't make kicks. Coach Erickson, go to the rugby team. Give a rugby player a scholarship. The rugby ball is similar to a football. They can kick the distance. They can kick it accurately. They need to find a kicker if they're going to win these close games.
Now, we'll see if the Sun Devils can find a way to get back on track. Now that they lost that game to UCLA, the Sun Devils must win out to be in contention for the Pac-12 South title. In the event that UCLA were to win out, the Bruins would clinch the Pac-12 South. So, guys, in your mind, who locks up the South? Which of these 2 teams do you think will be in the Pac-12 championship game, and why? Pierce.
I think both teams actually have a very good chance of locking up the Pac-12 South. I'm going to go ahead and give my nod to ASU just because I think that they do have the talent. If they can bounce back from this loss against UCLA, I think they do have the talent to win out the rest of the season. I don't think UCLA is going to get it done this weekend or against USC in the Coliseum at the end of the year. So I think UCLA is going to win or lose too many games to be able to win the Pac-12 South.
And I actually think UCLA has the best chance right now to win the Pac-12 South. I think each team will lose one of their last 3 games, and then the tiebreaker would go to UCLA. I apologize to Kirk Herbstreit. I called him out a couple weeks ago on our show for picking UCLA, but obviously he knew something that I didn't know about this team. But guys, to be honest though, the real Pac-12 championship is played this weekend in Palo Alto between Oregon and Stanford.
I think ASU will win the South. They're more talented than UCLA. And not only are they more talented, I think the schedule is a little softer, guys. I think ASU can easily run the table. And if not, they'll go 2-1 at least. I see UCLA going 1-2. Yes, they will lose to Utah this weekend. And I think at the Coliseum, we can all agree that is an almost for sure loss for UCLA. So I think ASU will win the Pac-12 South.
Switching gears, let's go ahead and take a look at the Pac-12 North. Last weekend, number 7 Oregon went up to Seattle to take on the Washington Huskies, and the Ducks managed to come away with a big win. But only after a tough first half. Oregon showed up to play in the second half like they always seem to do, coming out victorious 34-17. Now, guys, break down this game. What were the pivotal plays? What worked and what didn't work for both teams? Robbie.
Well, Mike, you see what you're going to see right here in these highlights. The secondary for Oregon stepped up. They picked off Keith Price a couple times in this game, one of them right here. They got the running game going. You're going to see that right here. Once Oregon gets their running game going, they can spread teams out. They use their speed to their advantage. That's when Oregon wins games, and that's how they come back against these teams, like Washington in this case. But for me, the biggest play in this game was not necessarily pivotal. It didn't change the game, but the touchdown pass from Keith Price to Kason Williams, you're going to see that right here. It was one of the best touchdown passes I've seen arguably all season. It was a great play, and that was my biggest play of the game.
I'm going to go ahead and say my biggest play of the game was the option play where Oregon went up 31-17. It's right here. 31-17, they went up on the Huskies. Washington really, after that, 6 minutes left in the third quarter, were never able to put anything back together offensively. This is the Oregon team we've come to know for the entire season. You know, they play pretty average in the first half and then come out and dominate their opponents in the second half. ASU wasn't able to take advantage of it. Washington wasn't able to take advantage of it. We'll see if Stanford might be able to take advantage of it this weekend.
My pivotal play of the week was not a play that even made our highlight reel, but it is a play that extended the game to a 3-possession lead for Oregon, and that was the field goal at the end of the third quarter. Washington would have had a chance if they were only down 2 possessions. Extending that to 3 possessions, making the lead 17 was too much. And guys, also the things that Oregon did well, they ran the ball as they always do. LaMichael James got back on track. He had 156 yards, I believe, on the game. And then Washington offense has been really good all year. They were not able to get the job done.
Now, after asking our guys who they thought were the top 3 wide receivers in the Pac-12, they unanimously voted their number 1 to be USC's Robert Woods, and for good reason. Woods has 90 receptions on the season. He's accumulated 1,121 yards and 11 touchdowns so far. Very impressive season for USC's Robert Woods. Our panelists differed a bit when it came to their number 2 and 3 picks, though. Ben, you ranked Jerron Kreiner as the number 2 wide receiver. Pierce, you and Robbie both put him at number 3. Ben, convince the rest of us that Jerron Kreiner should be the number 2 receiver in the Pac-12.
His stats don't show it, guys, but his talent does, and that's what we're grading them based on here. He's 6'4", 215 pounds. He's faster than Robert Woods. He can go over the middle and make big-time catches. He has great hands. He can beat you in so many different assets of the game. He's a prototypical NFL wide receiver, and I think he might even be more successful than Woods at the next level. But Woods' production is too much to not make him 1. Kreiner's definitely my number 2.
I would disagree with you, and I will go off of the facts based on the stats. Keenan Allen is the only other receiver other than Robert Woods in the Pac-12 who's over 1,000 yards worth of receiving. I put Jerron Kreiner as number 3 because when people play Arizona, they know he's their go-to guy. They know he's Nick Foles' main target. So they're going to put their best defender on him, maybe even 2 guys. So his yardage is obviously going to be a little bit less.
I put Jerron Kreiner as my 3rd best receiver for the exact same reasons that Pierce stated just then. But my 2nd receiver was Marcus Wheaton of Oregon State. He doesn't have the best stats, 60 receptions, 772 yards, a touchdown on the year, but he's been very important to this team. James Rodgers has been out most of the season. Katz has been out at quarterback. Mannion's done a good job as a freshman coming in for Oregon State, but because he's had the big target of Wheaton to throw to, Wheaton's done a good job on 3rd downs, extending drives for Oregon State, and he's a big reason they've won the few games that they have.
Pierce, where I'm going to disagree with you is I think you sound like the movie Moneyball, the stats. The stats don't tell everything, guys. It's about the talent on the field, and I think Kreiner definitely has more talent. Look, Marvin Jones might be a better receiver than Keenan Allen, and they're on the same ball club, so I think you can't rank him as number 2. That's just my opinion.
I think if Kreiner had higher numbers, I would definitely rank him number 2. The reason I ranked him number 3 is because he has 8 touchdowns. That's good for 2nd in the Pac-12. I mean, he's definitely a great receiver. I just think Keenan Allen is better at this point in time.
And also, the talent level that Jerron Kreiner has, he should be able to fight through those double teams and the coverage that they're giving and they're throwing at him.
Yeah, Foles is giving them a lot of looks, so they got a lot of good receivers in Arizona.
All right, once again, time for the Pac-12 Player of the Week segment, and with key matchups this past weekend, it'll be interesting to see who you guys picked. Rob, your picks seem to differ a bit from Pierce and Ben. Who did you pick as your Offensive Player of the Week?
Well, Mike, I went with Griff Whalen of Stanford. He's emerging as their number 1 target for Andrew Luck. He had 6 receptions, 87 yards, and a touchdown last week against Oregon State and did a good job extending drives and was a big target for Andrew Luck.
I have Matt Barkley. Yes, it was against Colorado, but he put up 318 yards, 6 TDs, which set a school record. USC has a great tradition of good quarterbacks. He continues that tradition right now. He's very good for them. And he continued on the statement he made last week. Against Andrew Luck, he proved that he is elite quarterback in this draft class, arguably as good as Andrew Luck, and he continued to establish that reputation this past weekend.
I can't really comment on anything because I agree with everything. 6 TDs is always Player of the Week in my book.
Tough to go against those 6 touchdowns. Now, Ben, you and Pierce came to the same conclusion on the offensive side of the ball as to who your players of the week were. Now, did you come to the same conclusion on the defensive side as well?
It's not often that Ben and I will agree on 2 things in one show, but we do agree on Cal's defense getting the Defensive Player of the Week nod. Like it says right here, forced 7 punts, held the offense to 7 points, and they actually, Washington State scored those 7 points in the 4th quarter when most of their backups were in on defense. I think they actually could have had a shutout if they kept their starters in.
Yeah, Cal's defense did a really good job. Washington State averaging over 30 points per game. They held them to only 7. Washington State's offense looked very flustered all game.
And I took as my Defensive Player of the Week was Eddie Pleasant of the Oregon secondary. He had 5 tackles, 2 interceptions. He had 65 return yards after the turnovers that set up 2 really short fields that Oregon ended up capitalizing on and scoring on those 2 drives.
Up next in Pac-12 play this weekend, we have Oregon State at AT&T Park in San Francisco taking on the California Golden Bears, and the UCLA Bruins in Salt Lake City taking on the Utah Utes. Robbie, who do you got in these games?
Well, Mike, in the first game, I'm going to take California at home. I don't think Oregon State is nearly as talented as California. California's defense came up big last week against Wazoo. I think Cal will win easily at home. As far as the UCLA-Utah game goes, I think UCLA will capitalize on that momentum they built from beating ASU last weekend. Utah struggled at home. I think UCLA will win on the road.
I like everything Robbie said about Cal. I do think they're going to win their second in a row at home at AT&T Park over Oregon State. As for Utah and UCLA, I actually have Utah going in this one. Oh, please, Utah, don't let me down again. I hope that you will stop the run of UCLA and actually prove me right for once. But, yeah, I got to go with Utah on that one.
I have Cal having the edge over Oregon State. I think Izzy Sofel is going to have a very good game for him. I keep mentioning him as an underrated running back on this show. I think he's going to continue the trend. Cal starting to get a rhythm. Oregon State not looking too good. And UCLA-Utah, an intriguing matchup, but I like Utah in this upset, kind of an upset, I guess I should say. John White's going to run the ball all over UCLA's horrible run defense. And also, I think they need to be two-dimensional on offense. UCLA's offense not able to pass the ball, so I do not think they will be able to get the win unless Richard Breholtz or Kevin Prince is able to throw the ball, which they won't be able to do.
Now to finish up Week 11, we have some very intriguing matches with Arizona State and Pullman taking on the Wazoo Cougars in our big game of the weekend, number 7 Oregon at number 4 Stanford. Guys, tell me who you like in the ASU and Wazoo game and why. And just give me your pick in the Oregon-Stanford game, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. Ben.
I like ASU over Wazoo. Yes, it's a road game. It's going to be tough for ASU. They struggle on the road, but I think they're too talented. ASU coming off a game where they lost, but they lost barely, and they played their worst football. Wazoo is coming off a tough loss. They did not impress me last week. I think ASU's talent will take over. They'll win that ball game. And then Oregon-Stanford, we'll talk about that one in a second, guys.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pick Arizona State. They won 42-0 in Tempe last year over Washington State. Not sure if it's going to be that big of a win again for ASU, but I expect them to get a road win in Pullman this weekend.
I think Wazoo will have their hands full with Ball So Hard University. But with that being said, I think Arizona State will lose this game. I think Wazoo will pull the upset. We've seen Arizona State, after they lose games close, they kind of crumble. They're not a very resilient team, and I think they'll end up losing this week to Wazoo.
Now, like we mentioned, the game everyone is talking about this weekend is in Palo Alto. Game day is going to be there. Number 7 Oregon at number 4 Stanford. Guys, what needs to happen for each team to win this matchup? Do you think the Ducks need to jump on the ball early like they really have not been able to do this season? What are the keys to success for each team? And ultimately, who you got in this game, Pierce?
I'm going to go ahead and pick Stanford, the home team in Palo Alto. If Oregon can start strong and play the way they've been playing in the second half for the majority of the season, they will probably win this game. But I have not seen that from this Ducks team yet, and I don't think it's going to start with Stanford this weekend. I expect Stanford to go up pretty big in the first half. Maybe Oregon will be able to fight back, but I expect Stanford to be the victorious ones in the end in Palo Alto.
See, I actually disagree with almost everything you just said there, Piers. I don't think that Oregon starting off slow is going to be an issue because they've come back strong in every game this year. The only game they haven't been able to overcome that is the LSU game. Stanford is nursing a lot of injuries in this game. Chris Owusu's out. He was a big target at wide receiver. Colby Fleener he might play, but he's doubtful for this game. They also lost Levine Toilolo. He was another tight end. Stanford runs that big power 3 tight end system with 2 of those 3 tight ends out and one of their big time receivers. They're going to have a tough time giving Andrew Luck time. They're going to have a tough time running the ball, and I think Oregon is a deep, fast team, and they will win this game on the road.
I think the winner of this game will be the star that shines brightest. LaMichael James for Oregon or Andrew Luck of Stanford. The star that will shine brightest is Andrew Luck. I like him in this matchup. LaMichael James and Oregon really need to get that running game going, which we know they can do, but I don't think the Stanford run defense will allow it this week.
Oregon has a very good secondary, though, and do you think that the fact that Stanford has, I guess we'll say, injury issues, but also the fact that their wide receivers really aren't that great, do you think that will be an issue?
It may hurt them eventually, but I don't think so because Andrew Luck's been playing with some pretty average receivers and tight ends all year long, so I don't really think so.
The thing that makes Stanford's offense so unique is their balance. I think Stephon Taylor has been a good running back for them. Yes, they're missing the tight ends, but that offensive line has kept Andrew Luck clean all year.
Also, this is probably the best defense that Oregon has played all year except for LSU, so it'll be interesting to see how the Ducks match up against that on offense.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm Stanford.
We've come to the end of another episode of Pac-12 Chalk Talk. To stay connected with the Pac-12 Conference, be sure to follow Chalk Talk on Twitter, Facebook, and subscribe right here on YouTube. For Ben Haber, Pierce Bly, and Robbie Baker, I'm Mike Sackley. Austin Contrulis in here for me next week. Take care, and we'll see you next time.